The Battle of Okinawa, the Gate to Hell. Date, April 1st. June 22, 1945. Location, Okinawa Island, Ryukyu Archipelago, southern Japan. Belligerents, United States, Marines, Army, Navy. Versus his Imperial Japanese Army. Outcomes of American victory. Okinawa was captured as the final staging ground for a potential invasion of mainland Japan. But the cost was staggering. This was not just a fight for an island. It was the story of absolute destruction on Japan's last defensive frontier. Gaining ground in Okinawa became a torment measured in millimeters. For the Americans, this was the road to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For the Japanese, it was a war for national survival, force comparison. Clash of two military giants. United States troops, approximately 183,000 ground troops, Marines, Army support units, Navy personnel, over 550,000 sailors and officers aboard 1,200 ships. Aircraft, around 1,500 aircraft, F-4U Corsair, B-29 Superfortress, P-47 Thunderbolt, etc. Armor, M4 Sherman tanks, amphibious LVTS, flamethrower tanks. Warships, 40-plus aircraft carriers, 18 battleships, 200-plus destroyers, and escort vessels. Imperial Japan. Troops, approximately 120,000 soldiers, plus 40,000 armed Okinawan conscripts and students. Aircraft, estimated 1,500-plus warplanes, most prepared for kamikaze attacks. Kamikaze pilots, nearly 4,000 aircraft designated for suicide missions. Artillery and munitions, over 7,000 artillery batteries and underground ammo depots. Defense infrastructure, over 60 kilometers of tunnels, hundreds of caves, concrete bunkers. Battlefield analysis. Okinawa Island, stage of hell. Geographical context. Okinawa, the largest of the Ryukyu Islands, lies just 550 kilometers from mainland Japan, measuring roughly 100 kilometers long and 30 kilometers wide. It was strategically vital for launching direct air raids on Tokyo. Natural and engineered defenses, rugged terrain. The southern part of the island was mountainous and ideal for defense. Shuri Line, led by General Mitsuru Ushijima, Japanese forces fortified the southern region around Shuri Castle with an intricate system of tunnels, caves, and artillery nests. Underground fortresses, tunnels, and caves enabled hidden troop movements and surprise attacks. Climate, tropical rains, mud-clogged terrain, decaying corpses, and fly infestations created a hell beyond combat. Kamikaze threat. For the U.S. Navy offshore, the deadliest threat wasn't enemy bombs. It was suicide flights. Kamikaze attacks sank 36 U.S. ships, damaged 368 more, and killed over 4,900 sailors. Preparation phase. Operation Iceberg versus Shuri Defense Line. United States, Operation Iceberg. In spring 1945, the U.S. aimed to capture Okinawa as the final step before invading mainland Japan. From there, air bases could launch direct raids on Tokyo. Commanders: Admiral Raymond Spruance, commander of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. General Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr., leader of the 10th Army with over 180,000 troops. The plan was swift: land in the island's center, divide north and south, and secure total control. But what awaited was one of history's most formidable defensive networks. Japan, Shuri Defense Line, and General Ushijima's strategy. Japan's 32nd Army, led by General Ushijima, manned the final defense. They didn't confront the enemy at the beaches. They waited deep inland in fortified positions. Defensive components included tunnel networks dug into the mountains, military use of limestone caves and natural barriers, mobilization of civilians for support and resistance, prearranged kamikaze air and sea attacks. Japan didn't expect victory. Their goal: inflict such horrific losses that the U.S. would reconsider invading the mainland. Okinawa would be the battlefield of psychological resistance. The course of the battle. The 77-day descent. April 1st, 1945. The landing calm before the storm. On Easter morning, 1,300 ships and over 180,000 troops launched the largest amphibious assault in U.S. history. Initial resistance was minimal. Some soldiers believed the battle would be easy, but the silence was the omen of what lay ahead. Mid-April, resistance emerges. The invisible fortress. U.S. forces, advancing south, encountered the Shuri line, a hellish maze of tunnels, sniper nests, and hidden artillery. Japanese forces fought to the death from fortified positions. Every rock, every ridge, cost American lives. The Shuri line, blood and stalemate. The heart of the battle centered around Shuri. Despite relentless artillery and aerial bombardments, Japanese defenders held firm. Sugarloaf Hill changed hands repeatedly, becoming a symbol of death itself. June. The suicide wave. Desperation and honor. Facing inevitable defeat, Japanese troops escalated banzai charges and mass suicides. Soldiers refused surrender, using grenades to kill themselves and others. Humanity fractured alongside the war. June 22, 1945. Silence again. Battle ends. After 77 days, the southern tip fell. Generals Ushijima and Cho committed ritual suicide. An American flag was raised, but the color of victory was crimson, the red of blood. Losses and evaluation. The cost of victory. United States, a traumatizing triumph. Deaths, approximately 12,500. Wounded, incapacitated, 49,000 plus. Total casualties, approximately 62,000. Naval losses, 36 ships sunk, 368 damaged. Aircraft lost, 763 assessment. A tactical victory, yet one of the bloodiest in history. Kamikaze attacks shocked U.S. command. Every life lost became a grim reminder and a factor in the coming nuclear decision. Japan, total collapse, military dead. Approximately 100,000 surrendered troops. Only approximately 7,000 civilian deaths. 40,000 to 150,000. 1/3 of Okinawa's population. Total losses, 140,000 to 200,000. Aircraft lost, approximately 4,000, mostly kamikazes. Assessment, more than military defeat. This was societal disintegration. Civilians were forced to die. Children were used for propaganda. At Okinawa's end, Japan had no army and no morale left. Strategic and psychological consequences. Strategic outcomes 1. Climax of the Pacific War. Okinawa was the largest, deadliest Pacific battle. It paved the path to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 2. Japan's final defensive collapse. With its army, navy, and civilian morale destroyed, Japan stood defenseless. Kamikaze tactics had failed to prevent the American advance. 3. U.S. turning point toward nuclear warfare. The horrific U.S. losses made Truman's administration reconsider a mainland invasion and turn to atomic alternatives. Psychological impact. 1. Shock in American public perception. The deaths of 12,000 plus Americans forced the public to ask, when will this end? 2. Kamikaze terror. Suicide pilots shattered the Navy's sense of safety. They became symbols of Japan's desperation. 3. Civilian tragedy and collapse of trust. Tens of thousands of civilians died or were forced to kill themselves due to propaganda-induced fear. Public trust in Japan's leadership eroded. 4th myth of imperial invincibility. Destroyed. With Okinawa's fall, the belief in the emperor's divine invulnerability was broken. This psychological blow made Hirohito's upcoming surrender address more acceptable to the public. The final turn, from Okinawa to Hiroshima. Okinawa wasn't just a battle. It was the tragic final curve in Japan's road to surrender. After this, peace was no longer in Japan's hands. The U.S. held a new weapon, bloody gate to the mainland. Okinawa's fall left Japan's southern door wide open. Only a few hundred kilometers of sea separated Tokyo from U.S. forces, but every meter would be paved in blood, unless something drastic changed. Deep division in Japan's War Council. Some generals insisted on dying with honor. Others wanted to end the suffering. But internal conflict led nowhere, because the decision no longer belonged to them. A new weapon, a new age. Okinawa's horrors convinced Truman Japan would never surrender voluntarily. Thus emerged the logic behind Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The belief that if they won't stop the war, we must stop it for them. The shadow of surrender post-Okinawa. Japan's war wasn't about victory. It was about delay. Until Emperor Hirohito finally addressed his people with these words. To continue the war would mean the total destruction of the Japanese nation. Thus, I have made an extraordinary decision. We shall surrender.